Negotiating is an exercise in empathy and trust, and both sides need to deliver. Hello, sorcerers. Welcome back for another procurement and career-related video. This week is going to be a short one, but it is an important topic. It's an important story that I wanted to share with you. I know that this video is going to be released after my negotiation video, so if you have a moment, take a look at the negotiation video that I released in the last couple of weeks. I'll also post it at the end of this video. But I said in that video that procurement people need to have empathy for sales teams. They should be treated with respect. People shouldn't be jerked around, and we should be relatively honest about the things that we need and be open to the things that the sales teams need. So I want to start this conversation by implicitly saying one should approach conversations, whether you're on the sales side or the procurement side or the customer side, one should try to approach these scenarios with empathy and honesty and try to make sure that everybody wins. But sometimes those situations do not work. What happens when the other side of the negotiating table is not being rational, is not being reasonable, and just wants to emotionally shut down? This is a scenario that occurred. And don't ask me to reveal the answer of who the supplier was. We're not going to do that. But what I do want to talk about is when a scenario like that occurs, how one should handle it. Do not feed into the anger if you are the person that's live on the call. Take the person's negative reactions, write down their responses, try to get off that call as quickly as possible to not inflame more emotional responses. Take the notes down and then try to do some type of recovery in the background. But if someone is so entirely unprofessional that you can't have a conversation with them, if you can't follow up, if you can't maybe go to their leader because they're relatively high up, then you have to start thinking about alternative options. And I did mention this in the other video as well. If some supplier, at a certain point, if it's just become toxic, you do have to have a strategy to walk away. And sometimes you can't do that immediately because you have an investment and there's a time investment in resources. People's egos, people's issues can't get in the way of business. But if there is a consistent problem, you may have to work on a strategy to move away. This probably all sounds fairly familiar. There's nothing brand new about this concept, but there is a point that I wanted to really bring up, which is people don't stay at the same company forever. Think about that because people move on. And if you're on the sales side, if you're on the procurement side, you may end up working with people or engaging with people in a different company, in a different position. And if you've left a bad taste in someone's mouth, that could come back to haunt you 5 to 10 to 15 years from now if you run into that person again. We should all focus on some degree of forgiveness. We should focus on, we all make mistakes as human beings. Make sure, if you can, to take an opportunity to rectify those mistakes in life. If you had a bad day, if you maybe flipped out on a potential customer and didn't react well to a negotiation tactic, instead of doubling down on it, take a minute, breathe, make an apology. Because that procurement person or that customer, they could be a much bigger deal 5 years down the line, and you may not have the leverage that you have today. So you have to do the math. What is the reputational risk to your company now? What's the reputational risk to your company later? And this is really the core element of negotiating, of networking, and try to turn that bad day and that mistake into a teaching moment and into a positive outcome. We're all human beings. We're all animals. And depending on how your day is going, depending on what time you ate, depending on what you ate, depending on if you had a bad conversation with a family member early in the morning, these things can factor in and impact the way your meetings go, the way you're interacting with professional contacts. And we should all be somewhat forgiving of a bad moment. I'm re-emphasizing that. Also be aware of the negative consequences. Understand that if you're having that bad day and you slip, there could be real repercussions for that. And it's not just the immediate repercussions. These things can follow you for years, right? And you can see sometimes people who build a reputation like that, go look at their LinkedIns. They don't stick around places for very long. So be kind. We all need to do better at being kind. And I know this is like a rah-rah Pollyanna kind of video, but that's all right. It's also the right thing to say and to do. Let's all be better to each other, but let's also be mindful. You know, the way you treat people who are lower level now, they could be a much bigger deal in the future. And you should, if nothing else, think of your own personal self-preservation in those situations. So thank you for watching this video. Have a great day. And I will be back with another video in 2 weeks.